July 19, we launched the first product. This was essentially to help people understand credit. And like Indians usually have a very dysfunctional relationship with money because it's not a very well talked subject. We don't want to spend time on that, and time is becoming even more precious. So the idea was to build like a tool given the hands of consumers so that they can figure out themselves. Not many people know, but India is the largest credit bureau population in the world. Okay, we have more than 400 million Indians holding a bureau score. So we use that insight and help people track money. I mean, again, Indian love numbers, especially if the number belongs to your own performance. People love that. We have been taught from our childhood that 33 means pass, 60 means first class, 75 means distinction. So I guess I'm like, we just played around that insight, throw back insights on their own numbers back to consumers. People loved it. So that was our 0 to 1. So, like if you are able to crack distribution, like easily, and, we were getting into category where data is a big ingredient for our business. And people who are incumbent, like banks, had an advantage over us. So we had to build our own data set. So it kind of very well fit into our plan. So the way I see that in our startup world, we talk about product market fit, that are you able to build a solution which solves problem for someone? But especially in categories like financial services, where even though the penetration is low, for the segment, there is heavy competition. I always tell people that along with that, do find your go-to-market strategy. How would you acquire your first few users? Because only then the ball start rolling. So for us, OneScore actually played the role for go-to-market for OneCard, which came quite handy. Gave us users, gave us data to build us, create models on. And lastly, it was also became a good tool for us to educate our customers how to maintain good credit. Because I'm like, we make money if the consumers stay good with the credit. If they don't, then we also get jacked. So that was the whole insight about that.
Yeah, that's very insightful. Ravi Bhushan, you want to go next?
Yeah. So, I'll just break down the problems, my response into three parts. One, I'll pick what Vishal just said, for a few minutes back, picking up the right problem statement, right? Whether it's large enough, relevant enough for long term, right? That is the prerequisite for anything, right? If you are into something which you find connected with, and it's a large problem for the society, you have enough audience for it, and then it's relevant. It is going to be relevant for long term. Then you are at least breaking your head against something which may give you meaningful outcome, right? Number one. Number two is in the 0 to 1 journey, it's very important that, you do your experiments very, very fast, right? That is a very critical component. You should not traverse your 0 to 1 journey in a way as if you are building the perfect product from day one, right? That's very, very critical. Otherwise, you may lose the market opportunity by running, by dreaming your own or in your own way, while others, can take the opportunity out of you. That's number two. Number three is 0 to 1 journey is not only about product market fit. It's also about figuring out the right GTM, right, which is go to market strategy. I think a lot of founders have seen in many startups, some of them are overly indexing the product market fit point. So they find that, there is a product which is fit for the market, but they don't know how to scale this product, right? How to solve the distribution part. Some people are figuring out, they have a channel market fit, so they can scale the product through this channel, but they don't know, what's the sweet spot of the product composition, right? I think in the 0 to 1 journey, it's very, very important that, you first go with the product market fit, even though it is non-scalable to start with. First, try to find out where the actual value creation is happening for the customer. If that is taken care of, then you go for, even though you have solved the PMF piece in a non-scalable fashion, how to make it scalable now by figuring out the right distribution channel. Generally, there was a tweet from Kunal saying that in today's digital world, jiska distribution uski bhais, right? So it's like distribution is not something which can be undermined, right? So what I'm trying to say is that 0 to 1 journey is is a combination of both these things. And the approach to traverse this is doing fast experimentation. That doesn't mean that, in the name of MVP, you do half-baked product, right? It's all about how fast you can execute different ideas and figure out what works and what does not work. And then at least come up with a value proposition that, this much value is good enough for the user to either, remain with you for a relevant time or to pay you for your services, right? So I'll summarize: identifying the right problem statement. Second is figuring out the right product market fit, and then figuring out the right distribution medium, right? And generally in the distribution side, it follows the power law. So if one channel is working for you, you just need to over-index on that and then take it, very strongly, rather than, in the initial day, just spending too much energy around so many things. That will rip you apart, because as I said earlier, that the startups are always just starved of resources, right? So I think if something is working, just over-index on it and, take it forward.
Thank you, Raviji. Vishalji would like to go.
Yeah, Ravi, I think you can just call us by the name. There's no need to call G. But so I think Ravi, Bhushan, and Anurag, they covered. I'll try to again make it specific, so it might. So I would say one more point. See, when I was starting, I think a founder has to be very well aware of his or her strengths and weaknesses, right? And also then try to collect the first, your co-founders or the starting team accordingly. So once, like Ravi Bhushan said, once you've identified the problem statement, which is big enough, and so I'll give my example. I have a lot of finance, marketing, go-to-market, distribution, organizational building, those kind of experience and overall strategy. But of course, I might have a lot of macro perspective on F&B and most of the players around the world, how they've scaled. But of course, I'm not a great cook, or I have not been in F&B, right? So, my co-founder, Kaushik Roy, he's a veteran F&B guy. So some of you have to always, when you're starting, you have to look at your weak and strong points and what an organization would need and cover them a bit early in the game when you're starting at the zero stage rather than later. So I think that's number one. Number two, in our case, why most of the companies fail is there are a lot of very good F&B brands, but they might be limited to Bombay or Bangalore or one city, where the founder can go to a few outlets in the morning or the next day or next week and take care. But can you grow it to pan India the way Domino's or McDonald's is, or all over the world? What is required is a very strong detail to SOPs, we call, or systems and processes, right? So we don't really have cooks in our kitchens or outlets. So it can be made through systems. So the back-end work had to be done from day one instead of, before anything came, because we were very clear that we had to make biryani fresh on every order and deliver it in the same handi, it's dum cooked. So it's easier said that there's a lot of tech involved. People might not believe in the back-end side. So, we can deliver or serve the same biryani in Bhubaneswar or Guwahati or Bangalore or Pune or Bhopal or Jalandhar or Patiala. So it takes a lot of emphasis on those kind of systems. And third thing I would say, a middle management is very important, because a founder can push 200 or 200 crores of sale at most through horsepower. But if you have created a right middle management from day one in terms of be it your purchase or finance or GTM or distribution or so many other functions, like we had EY as auditors for last 4 years. So if you have been able to put this middle management in place from day one, or as you grow, not too late. So some of those things really help. And of course, the GTM and the distribution and brand building are very important parts, but Ravi and Anurag have covered it. So, but in our case also in the food industry, there are very good brands. Like I'll take example in Bombay, but when they come to Delhi, people don't know them. So other than you also have to be, in our case, because a very big consumer brand, even in case of Anurag or Ravi to a lot of extent. So can you build the brand across cities or at a very big pan India or the world level? So some of those kind of things you have to be careful from choosing your co-founders or core team or the middle management or the systems and processes to be set from day one. And of course, the GTM and the branding part and so many other things. Yeah. And also, I think maybe, sorry, Anurag, but just to create the right culture from day one. But yeah.
I have a question to ask, Vishal. So we always keep obsessed on GTM PMF, but I think as Ravi said, defining the MVP is core, and especially for biryani, how did you define your MVP? I'm like, because I remember when I got to know on our group and I ordered in Pune as soon as it came, and 2-3 things noticed. One was handi, which it came and I had to cook it. It was like a contribution from my side before I could eat. But how did you define your MVP, especially in a product like biryani?
So can you define MVP here? Maybe I don't
like minimum viable product, because like how much, like biryani is like barus, and so there are so many, and all of us have some context around biryani. We would have eaten like at a restaurant. So how did you go about ki itna hi karna hai, minimum ye to chahiye?
So you're saying minimum, you mean minimum product differentiator or minimum quantity?
Let me give you example of our. So जब हम cards बना रहे थे, card का stack काफी complex होता है because Visa Mastercard से certify कराना पड़ता है. We had a choice कि rewards बनाए कि EMI बनाए, and we did our research. Consumer said कि बिना reward कोई card नहीं होता है, EMI बाद में आ सकता है, and like it was a big insight for us because everybody, when they take credit card, they all believe that they're going to pay on time and make some rewards. That's like such an organic thought in consumers' mind. And while we build products in the bank, EMI is like really core to cards. Because it's a credit feature. But people didn't care about credit feature on day zero, but they cared about rewards. So we had to choose. And that's, I think, Ravi Bhushan was mentioning about that. Because at the beginning, you have limited resources. You have as many engineers, as many product managers. You got to optimize. So, this minimum viable product definition is very important. Because
I got it.
If you define it too narrow, you will get a misconception about PMF. And if you define it too broad, it will probably take too much time for you to build it. Now, I chose that because we are a tech product, easier to define. But for a food product, how do you define? Because if you don't eat biryani, you don't eat biryani. It's as simple as that. So how did you...
So let me put it very frankly. See, people don't need to eat biryani, right? They can pay to dal roti se bhi bhar jayega, right? And there are people selling biryani at every nook and corner. Be from Baros is still recent, but biryani has been sold for a few hundred years, right? So what are we doing different? So instead of MVP, I think how you're placing it, I think someone can say MVP is कि इसमें rice होना चाहिए और meat होना चाहिए. But I think I'll just go. I'm just joking.
हम लोग ये define कर, आपके लिए तो बिरयानी जब तक बिरयानी नहीं बनेगी वो बिरयानी नहीं है. तो आप
नहीं. So see, a lot of people confuse pulao with biryani, right? See, we say biryani is something. MVP is if it is dum cooked. Dum cooked is if it's cooked in a closed vessel, first of all, right? So the dum, the aromas and flavors are captured, right? That's number one. Most people were giving just pulao. See, most people are giving, if they're able to deliver in 30 minutes, see, biryani cannot be dum cooked in 7-8 minutes like pizza. So if you're delivering in 30 minutes, it's not a biryani for us, at least our definition of MVP. So to dum cook it is, with 6 years of technology, we can dum cook it in 20, 25, 30 minutes, right? Depending on the size of the handi. So dum cooking is very important for us, as how we understand the MVP after doing the surveys, etc. So most of the companies, 99.99%, either are cooking in a very big vessel, 10, 20, 30 kgs, and they're just selling it the whole day or next day. But in places like Hyderabad, where the biryani is a very deep category, it gets sold very fast. But most of the India or the rest of the world, people are just freezing it and sending it and reheating it. So for us, the MVP was, it has to be dum cooked every time and dum cooked fresh and delivered in the same handi. That's how we defined the MVP. It was defined. So of course,
मेरे लिए भी टर्निंग पॉइंट वही था कि वो उसी हांडी में आया जिसमें बना है.
So it is fresh, delicious, it's organic, it has its own flavors captured. So that's biryani for us.
Over to you, Ravi. No, I actually lived in Hyderabad after IIT BHU. My first job was in Hyderabad. So I have little different affinity towards biryani. So that's why. Anyway, over to you, Ravi Teja.
That's very insightful, Vishal, to articulate how is the MVP. And thanks for that question, Anurag, because it's the MLP, minimum lovable product we should design. Yeah, and it's very hard for an entrepreneur to choose like kitna kam rakhna hai, kitna zyada rakhna hai. Like you also gave a very beautiful example of EMI versus rewards. So on that note, can we double down कि आप लोगों ने मतलब काफी सारी चीजें एक्सपेरिमेंट करके कुछ चीजें सक्सेस भी नहीं हुए होंगे 0 to 1 जर्नी में. सो वहां से किसी से कुछ ऐसा एग्जांपल आप शेयर करना चाहेंगे, because many entrepreneurs who are watching this live might be going through their 0 to 1 journey. So how this confusion of MVP versus MLP, where should we start and where should we keep on building? So can you share some specific examples in your building the company? Anurag has just shared about the choice he has to make. So anything you want more to add, Anurag?
Yeah. So, Ravi, you want to say go ahead? Go ahead.
No, that's fine. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So, actually, I would give a better example of my previous startup, Walnut, because we faced a very, I would say, interesting insight, which we thought we built it very well, but we discovered very differently. So this was in 2017, and Walnut was my first startup. People loved it. We were growing like crazy, 60-70% organic, scaled up around 8-9 million users. And then we said, how do we make money? So we built out a credit score based on data and gave them a credit line, for consumers, which they can consume as a short-term loan into their accounts. So there was no UPI, by the way, then. This is 2017, and we scaled up to around 100 crore. Disbursement within like 9 months, but we were not making money. And then we studied and what's happening. So we discovered an insight that people take loans for very specific needs, and usually they are time sensitive ones. So whatever experience you design for consumers, if they don't remember you in their loan moment, you still have to pay that toll tax to Google, Facebook to get in front of the customers. So the biggest insight was like, लोन के लिए तो लोग पहले गूगल पे जाएंगे तब आपके पास आएंगे, आपके पास स्टेट नहीं आएंगे. और then we said, okay, fine, why don't we ride on merchants to sell, so that because our product was linked to but there was no checkout because उस समय सोचा नहीं हमने. We said, okay, we'll give the money to the account. So if you rely on merchants to get you customers, then they expect you a certain acceptance rate कि इतने लोगों को तो approve करो ही. So then you have a higher loss rates. So it was a life between this. So we designed the best experience. People loved it. We were like 4.6, 4.7 rated those times. For a credit product, it's a very high rating because whoever you decline is going to tank your rating anyway. But we just couldn't crack the business model. And then we figured out, okay, fine, probably it's better off to, be part of a larger platform. So we got acquired by Capital Float. They were... they had a large money coming from Amazon, and Amazon wanted to build a platform to drive their pay later. Amazon Pay Later is my product built by me in my previous company, Walnut. So I'm like, the point is like everything was right. People loved us. We just couldn't get the model right because we just fit into the decision cycle of the consumer, and we had to keep spending money to get in front of the customer. So
can I? It's more a question than a comment. So this means, when people are looking for housing loan, they think of HDFC. When they think of education loan, they think of something. So it is very loan specific need, very segmented.
Actually, विशाल पता क्या है, HDFC के लिए भी मैं आपको एक्सपेरिमेंट दूं. अगर लोग जाके बैंक बाजार पे देखें कि इंडिया बुल्स आपको 8% पे दे रहा है और HDFC 8.5% पे दे रहा है, तो सारी लॉयल्टी वहां खत्म हो जाती है. But I'm trying to say that it's such a commoditized product, and that's why our next product we built was a credit card. You know why? Because in our business, engagement is key. It's not a disbursement-related product. To give you an example, if you given 500 crore rupee loan, 5 lakh rupee loan to somebody over a period of 3 years, after 1.5 years, it's only left is 2 lakhs. So you have to actually lend more to be there. But in credit card, it's like an engagement. If you crack the engagement with the user, he's just going to stay with you. And we said as a tech company, our right to win is engagement. We cannot compete against banks who already acquire customers for something else. Most of the banks acquire customers for savings account, and that becomes their source of, biggest customer acquisition. And then they start cross-selling. But a tech company has to crack on their own. So we said we should build a product which is more engagement oriented. And that was the insight we carried in this company. And of course, today credit cards in vogue. But in 2018, when we were thinking of, everybody was thinking, why should somebody reinvent credit cards, which might die? And, like today they are like in vogue. But our thesis was primarily because we have to solve for engagement. Because that's our right to win. We can't compete against banks on distribution because they have their own set of customers. So this was a big learning from our failure, which we tried to convert this into a success in this company.
Insightful, Anurag. Ravi,
yeah, Ravi, you wanted to.
Yeah, I'll just Ravi Teja, as you asked that, how do you do a fine balancing between what is minimum viable and minimum lovable product? I'll share an example about the company which we are running, BrightChamps. So from day one, we were committed to build a platform which is synonym to high quality education across the world around all those important life skills which are not being taught in a school as part of curriculum. So there are so many important life skills like technology skill, financial literacy, communication. All these things are very important in today's time. Unfortunately, the conventional system, be it a school or colleges, they are still teaching those things which are, a little bit, which were designed and, defined, hundreds years back. And in the world is evolving very fast. The world is changing very fast. Because of whatever reason, there is some inertia in the conventional system. Hence, they are not able to upgrade the curriculum, the staff, the teachers. And hence there is a gap. So we identified that there is a big gap, right? And, there is an incredible opportunity to build a high quality company globally in this area. Now, the thing is that, we had opportunity to build an experience which is around how to teach technology to kids, how to teach financial literacy to kids, how to teach effective communication to kids, right? So we could have said that, let's do everything. But then here, what you have to do is that, you have to define your MVP or MLP, right? And then we said that, no, we can't do everything, right? And when you start a startup, you also have to worry about, as a founder, about the survival thing, right? You can't chew more than what you can digest, right? So the thing is that, you have to pick your problem statement so carefully that, okay, we will not do financial literacy. We will not do, let's say, effective communication to start with. We'll pick just one cohort, but then we'll do a very superlative job there. Now, let's say we picked the technology to start with. Now we have to pick the right market, right? So there you could have said that, it's a very digital experience, it can be done anywhere and everywhere. But then you have to understand that, different countries have different culture, different expectations of parents. So you have to do a right selection there, right? So that is again, cutting the corner and saying that, I will concentrate here. Now, third example in the same journey, when we started the product, I talked to more than 300 parents across the world. And the insight which I got was that they are looking forward to an experience, a learning experience, wherein the child learns things, right? And, they should be aware that what he or she is learning. Now, kisi parent ne ye nahi kaha ki whether you will teach on Zoom or Google Meet or your own platform, right? Many of the founders in EdTech, I realized that when they start the company, in the name of minimum viable product, they think that, apna learning platform hona chahiye, let's deploy 20 engineers, let's build the learning platform. The parents are actually not worried about it. Parents are worried about their children, learning outcome. They are not worried about aap Zoom pe padha rahe hain ya fir Google Meet pe padha rahe hain, right? So then we said that, MVP ka matlab ye bhi hai ki jab tak hamara PMF or distribution solve nahi hota hai, hum Zoom pe hi padhayenge. Doesn't matter. Because that's not that you can always do when you scale, when you have more muscle, right? But then that's not the core of the problem. That's just a more sophisticated execution when you scale and you build more muscle in the startup. But then nobody is saying that I will not take the classes because you are teaching on Zoom or Google Meet, right? So we said that rather than wasting time and energy here, let's worry about the content. Let's worry about the learning outcome and things like this. So what happened? It saved us 10 months, right? If we would have picked the problem of building a elaborate learning platform, which could do very high level of engagement between parent, student and teacher, we could have, just picked another level of, problem, which deserves a separate company in itself, right? And we would have deviated from our path. So what I'm trying to say, you have to be very connected with the customer and you have to understand that what is that minimum set of things which is required, which can make them cross the paywall or which can make them retain as a user, right? So either you improve on the engagement or you improve on your conversion, but ultimately you have to find out what is that minimum common denominator in minimum common set of things. With that, you should be able to make them retain or make them convert, right? And then in different fields, in credit card field, it can be something else. In F&B, it can be something else. But in EdTech, we realized that, and everybody was asking me that, you have started EdTech company or aap Zoom pe padha rahe ho, what kind of EdTech company is this, right? And I said that, it doesn't matter. I am solving for the customer. I am not solving for, perception for the company, right? And then it turned out to be, in hindsight, I think, it was a good decision.
That's very insightful, Ravi, and such a bold step you have taken, purely keeping your customer in the center. That's inspiring. Vishal, you spoke. You spoke about delivering handi, right? The biryani which is cooked in the handi. That's the same thing going to the customer. Anything you want to add in this ongoing conversation?
So I think you were talking about I think if I remember the question from where we started, what are the mistakes?
Yes, that's right.
Might have made. Yeah. So I would say to a certain extent, I think it's about how we chose our name. So earlier we were 6 years back selling in kilo handis. Then we were selling in half kilo. We also do single portion handi now. And, I love, and most of our customers who order our kebabs, they love our kebabs or finni, right? We are known for our kebabs, veg and non-veg. But I think sometimes you have to be careful what the name you choose, right? And sometimes you can be a victim of your success also. So we are known so much by our biryani that sometimes, the kebabs or the finni or the other things. So I think in terms of mistakes, be a bit, so it can help you get the initial thrust, which is required. But sometimes thinking ahead, might also help some of those kind of things. But I want to ask Ravi Bhushan a question, if you allow me, very small.
No, absolutely. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So Ravi, I was looking at your background, and if I think saw rightly, you have a tech and a product background, right? And you were in Prop Tiger. So you've not been in the field of education really, right? So how difficult was it to, if that's correct, to really identify a problem from it? Anurag has been, I think he's been in finance for ages, right? And I have been investing in this F&B sector, so I understand so if you were completely new to education, the way I saw in LinkedIn, so how difficult was it to really spot the problem and spot it so spot on and become so successful? Because there likes of from BYJU'S to an academy to, there's a lot of gorillas here, right? To be able to, but is it right? You don't really have experience in the education. I think you got the question, if you can answer.
Yeah, sure. I think as a founder, if you have to really disrupt a sector, you don't need to copy, paste, or replicate what conventionally has been happening. So not knowing many things is a blessing in disguise, right? So that's one. Second is, I always believe in a problem founder fit, right? Which is do you connect with the problem?
Emotionally connect.
Yeah. So I'm a homeschool child. I never went to a school after grade 3. And I always, not that, I was determined to become a EdTech co-founder, since my childhood. What I'm trying to say is I'm a rebellion to the conventional education which exists, right? And that the talk will go very long if I go into the details of that. But what I'm trying to say is I genuinely found that the way we are teaching to millions and millions of kids across the world, there are so many inefficiencies there. And then more than that, I believe that many of the things which we are teaching, like for example, be it in college, be it in a school, a lot of them are, 99% of them we are not applying when we are going in our professional life, right? And I am not saying that all that is not relevant, but what I am trying to say, there are many other things which are more relevant also, which we are not teaching, right? Like for example, I tell you a simple thing. After IIT BHU, when I passed out, from campus I got placement into this company called E-Shop, right? And it was a very sought after company, during those days, 2005, we were a batch of more than 35 folks across different IITs, computer science mostly, And then we joined this company. And then when the first financial year was ending, a 12th pass person came to us and said that, hey folks, here is this product. Isse aapko, you will get good saving, you will get best IT return, IT tax saving, and best insurance and everything. And without any doubt, without blinking for a second, we all bought that product. 2-3 years down the line, when we realized that what we have bought, we realized that we have literally bought a piece of shit, right? And it's not that all of us were academically. I can say that the average IQ of that group was at least as good or better than the average IQ which exists in any random group in our country. But then we ended up doing that mistake because nobody taught us what is financial literacy. Nobody taught us how these instruments work, right? So what I'm trying to say, a lot of people, when I was working as a CTO in various firms, a lot of people reached out to me, lawyers, interior designers, chartered accountant. They kept on saying, Ravi, mujhe bhi IT ka knowledge hota to hum bhi life mein acha karte, right? And that indicated that there is a gap, there is a black box. These relevant skills are important to have a superlative outcome in life, but nobody is teaching it. So I was very obsessed about building this thing. And when I went outside India, I realized that in the name of technology education, high-end schools in New York and London, they are teaching to kids how to make things bold and italics in Microsoft Word, right? That's the level of technology education which is happening, right? So I was clear that, there is an opportunity, and I am personally, passionate, obsessed about that problem. So what I'm trying to say is that, that once that criteria is met, whether you have 2 years of experience or 0 years of experience or like 20 years of experience in that field, I think, that's a secondary piece, right? So many people ask this question internally also. Now in our team, we have a lot of tech veterans, and they find that, when sometimes you don't know many things, you actually tend to think from first principle, and you connect better with the customer. Otherwise, you are always biased with what works in industry, right? So I'm not completely discarding the conventional, experiential out. There is a blessing in disguise in terms of not knowing, the industry which you are entering into. And when it's consumer facing, it's even more powerful and more important. And just adding one more point, we are operating in so many countries. It's impossible for any founder to know what parents want in Southeast Asia, what parents want in Middle East, and what parents want in North America, right? So what I'm trying to say is that if you can devise a mechanism to explore the needs of the customer with a first principle approach, you will be more successful rather than having a mindset that I know everything about the market and this will only work this way. Right. So I think, the conventional knowledge was not much needed, Vishal, to be very frank.
No, I completely agree. And if I can sort of say, but I think that emotional connect to a problem also really helps, which you have to this problem. I always thought emotionally, why don't we have a big F&B company out of, so that emotional connect always. But if I can just take a small question further to it, like you said, very important thing, it'll help a lot of people. The first principles, like if you're going to a different country, you ask the customers those questions, what do they need, right? So do you do focus groups in whichever country you are going? You have an agency. How do you do it? Those first, how do you get to, and also if you can say, how are different countries actually, are their needs that different in this field? But it'll help us also and a lot of other people who will be going. But is it focus groups, and are the needs so different of the parents in different?
No, absolutely. So the topics which we are picking, they are of global relevance. So technology is needed in every country, financial literacy is needed in every country. So it's not that, we end up tweaking a lot for a country, but then there are cultural and, local nuances, right, which you need to understand. Now, how do we understand it? So we have a focus group. To answer your first part of the question, we have a focus group study, and, we define certain budget, certain time to understand that geography. And then there are certain outcomes expected that, this is what so there are two types of expectation or user expectation, one has to read. One which is explicitly said by the customer, and one which is implicitly said by the customer, right? And explicits are very easy. You can deploy consultants, you can deploy, people who can take interviews and, write down notes and, create a laundry list of, items which customer is saying. The second set of things is tougher, which is like, they will not say, as they say that, if Henry Ford would have asked the market, what do you need? They would have said a stronger horses, right? Nobody would have said that, I need a car, right? So with the same principle, many of the things parents will not say or students will not say by default. So you need to read between the lines, right? And for that, you need to have senior folks, including the founder, to connect, to take the classes, to connect with the parents, right? And that we deliberately do, right? So what I'm trying to say, that country understanding is important. And the second thing is I will say that, whenever we launch in a country, we do at least 30 experiments, small or big experiments, around various aspects, and we try to position the product, what's the sweetest spot for this particular country. Like, for example, a parent in a given country may be may feel very superlative about a global exposure of the child. In some other geography, there could be a situation where the parent says that, I don't need anything else. I just need that, my child should be able to build such kind of things, right? So what I'm trying to say is that the product at core is same, but then the tweaking is basis the focus group, and then a conventional wisdom which exists that you need to have a local team in the country and you need to hire people on the ground. I don't believe in that. We are more than 20 countries right now, and then we are expanding in all of them. Many of the countries we are market leader, and we have zero presence on the ground, right? We are operating. The headquarters is in Goa, and we have so many people across India. But we have zero presence. But then we have a lot of foot presence through our customers, right? So we do a lot of focus group study, focus group, sort of insight generation, discussions through our customer, but no sort of offline or local setup required, so far. But then maybe the scale goes to a different level, then you start thinking about the offline and local presence. But so far we have been able to successfully navigate, Vishal.
You're saying listen to the customer very carefully and very honestly. It doesn't matter how you listen, on the ground or you listen through a Zoom call. It doesn't matter, but just listen carefully.
Yeah.
No, it's a very big insight. No, I think it's very helpful. Sorry, Ravi, Teja, I took.
It's actually, Vishal, आपने मेरा question ही पूछ लिया था. So it's very interesting question which I also wanted to ask both of you. In fact, Vishal, मैं आपसे भी पूछना चाहता हूँ कि कॉन्ट्ररी बिलीफ की, मतलब रवि हैज गिवन अ ब्रिलियंट इनसाइट कि आपको कुछ नहीं पता है तो आप फर्स्ट प्रिंसिपल थिंकिंग से सोचते हैं, एंड डेफिनेटली फाउंडर व्हेन ही और शी स्टार्ट समथिंग देयर इज डेफिनेटली एन इमोशनल कनेक्ट टू द प्रॉब्लम एंड ड्राइव टू सॉल्व इट. सो विशाल, आपके इतना एक्सपीरियंस रहा है, आपने एफएनबी में इन्वेस्ट किया है, पूरा स्पेस देखा है, कॉलेज के बाद आपके एक्सपीरियंसेस जो भी था वो कैसे शेप किया ताकि आप आज ये ट्रैजेक्टरी फॉलो कर पाए थे बिरयानी बाय किलो स्टार्ट करने के बाद?
वो तो आप हाइंडसाइट में देख सकते हो. It was never planned. If someone told me 20 years back I'll be selling biryani or kebabs, I wouldn't know. So I was running a IT business for 8-10 years. Like I said, I've been in hedge fund, I've been in Singapore, New York. So it is, you can only connect the dots backwards, not forward, right? So I think you have to. I have at least followed my heart. I was after IIT BHU 92. I went to US, did my masters, worked for a year. Then I really wanted to come back to India. IT was hot that time. I had an IT business. Then for some reasons, I wanted to go to Singapore. And I was always very interested in finance. So I moved to hedge funds and private equity and investments. And but because the emotional connect and somewhere, although I could have chosen to go into different consumer fields, but I think I really somewhere emotionally wanted to create a F&B company which is pan-India in the world, which a category where we can be world leaders for an Indian cuisine, which I think biryani is a one-pot meal and the kebabs. It will be India's answer to the burgers and the pizzas and the chipotle. So I think, but it's very difficult to see them going forward. You can only connect the dots backward. I think you have to follow. I think if you see Ravi's, what I've seen on LinkedIn, I think you have to follow the heart, keep doing, and not be afraid of taking the next step. I have moved from countries, New York, Singapore, India. Everyone else would have and I've seen other different jobs. You learn as you do things. I think you have to, but I think it's very important to build your instincts. I think if you build your instincts right in life, that's all you have. And the right connections, people, learnings, and be courageous enough to follow your instincts when the right time comes, because can be very it's not easy when you're taking those steps, moving countries or changing jobs or starting the startup. So I think trust your instincts. All I would say to that questions. If you've honed them well, they should serve you well.
Vishal, I have a follow-up question on the same thing. आपने बताया था कि if you see all the dots are connected rivers, right? All your experience, and you are driven by this. So there are so many young audience watching us who are driven about some problems. They want to create some change. How important it is to have some experience post graduation before they jump into chasing their dreams. Would you want to throw a light on the same?
So I think, like we all know some cliche things, like Mark Zuckerberg dropped out of college or Bill Gates dropped out of college. So there are a lot of, it's very difficult to say what is the right thing. I think a person, again, I'll come to that, has to follow their instincts. Of course, the safe path is to have some experience, right? In a corporate, startups. And I would say, choose the right, at least, instinctively know that what you are good at or what you connect emotionally. Some people might connect to, tech businesses, B2B businesses more strongly. Some people might connect to, consumer businesses, or some people might connect to fashion. See, for me, fashion doesn't matter what I wear, really, not so much, but food matters a lot to me. So I think choose also problem or areas of business or work where you connect, you want to solve problems, they make you emotionally excited, because sometimes people confuse aptitude, skills because they might have a great aptitude in something or skills, but if you don't really have that emotional energy, because that's what drives something like a startup, which requires a lot of energy, it's your emotional energy which you have to give. So I would just say there are no right answers after college or this. The safe answer is take a few years of experience, at least 2 to 4 years. So you have some experience and then go. But who am I? But, some people go after 20 years, some 10 years, some 5 years. But take some experience. That's always helpful. But keep moving in the direction where your instincts are telling you, right? And it's okay to make mistakes. It's again cliche, but it's okay to make mistakes, but accept them fast and move on. Yeah, right? But keep moving in the direction your instincts are taking you. I think that's more important. Yeah, Ravi wants to say something.
Yeah, I think you already touched on one point. Ravi Teja. See, there are certain skills, certain pieces which you can hire people for. There are certain things which, as a founder, you need to do yourself. Right? Now, the thing is, if somebody says that experience does not count, I think it's not the right statement, right? But then, in any sort of big endeavor which you are taking, right, you need to prioritize things. If for the sake of experience gain, if you are leaving the market opportunity on the table, which and the problem statement which you are fundamentally excited about, then I will question the excitement, right? In fact, I will say that, are you excited enough to jump on the problem?
True.
So if you ask me, there will be no moment in life wherein you will be skilled enough from all sides to perfectly start, right? There will never be that moment. There will, if you learn marketing, you will feel that, I should also learn sales. If you learn sales, you will feel that, I should learn fundraise and a number of things, right? So there is no, even if you have like 20, 25, 50 years experience, doesn't matter, right? What I'm trying to say, there is a moment in founder's life when they feel that, I can't resist this problem, right? And I need to jump on it, right? And then the rest of the things gets taken care, right? And, you need you need to build, if you have less experience, you need to build a solid team around you, right? But if a lot of youngsters are listening to it, and if some of you are very obsessed about a problem statement to solve, and you think that nahi 5 saal baat kar lenge jab experience hoga, I think you are fooling yourself, right? 5 saal baad duniya alag hogi, many things will change, the problem statements will not be the same, right? So either you should question your excitement about that problem statement, because if experience is holding you, then I think the excitement is not enough, right? Then there is a founder problem connect issue. Or if you are excited enough, then I think as a founder you have to deal with so many things. You have to arrange team, you have to arrange funds, you have to arrange opportunity, so many things, right? So if you think that ये problem आएगा इसलिए मैं start नहीं कर सकता अभी, then you are not a founder material, right? Problem तो आएगा boss, और सब तरह का problem आएगा, right? So you have to dealing with that is the entrepreneurship, right? So what I'm trying to say is that, just because something may happen, hence I will be first ready for it, that is against MVP, right? So I will say that, I think experience matters, but then excitement should not hold, founders to jump on the problem for the sake of experience.
Yeah. Thank you, Ravi. In fact, Vishal, I think also answered on the same note. He meant to say, trust your instincts. And that's a beautiful, line you made. If you are thinking twice about it, then it's not your true instinct. So thanks on that note. Anurag, I want to ask you the similar question. You have been in the space for a while. You've successfully built and sold your previous company. And before one also, you built a successful product, OneCard. So what do you think, how this experience post college helped you, bring such a massive company in a very short time? And what is also your take on the same question, which I asked Ravi and Vishal? What is your advice to the youngsters watching this?
I think advice is pretty much similar what Ravi and Vishal spoke about, nothing new. My journey has been really experimental. I didn't have that much of foresight. In fact, after IIT BHU, worked in tech for 2 years, and I did not anticipate how tech will change all of our life. So I decided to do an MBA. I went to do an MBA and then joined a bank. And that's when, 2002-3 is the period when financial services are becoming consumerized. Uske pehle, bank was primarily for companies, corporates. There was nothing called ATMs, there was not like public sector bank were the only banks banking that time. That's when I realized for the first time then how large this problem is. And, the rest 10 years just went by because ICICI went through a large growth cycle. Then 2008 happened, which was like a big correction cycle. And then I was fortunate to see, because I was been associated with payments, and payment was the first area where tech companies came in, and I had one insight which I spotted, most of the banks have fairly good, backend system in India, because most of the Indian banks use technology built by Indian companies like Infosys, TCS. So it's a very iterative process, but the consumer fintech is a very iterative place. You don't get it right in India. In fact, nobody can get it right because India is such a diverse market. And that's why I could see from very close quarters emergence of companies like Paytm, MobiKwik, and we were like being bankers to them, watching the scene by the side. So that was my click moment. So I would just add to whatever they say. एक बार जब बल्ब चमकता है तो फिर कूद जाना चाहिए. So once I saw it कि boss अभी ये तो we'll become like, this is what happening. Most of the banks will become mostly service provided to tech companies, especially in the consumer side, because the interfaces are becoming so iterative. And secondly, Indian consumer is exposed to very high quality interfaces, be it shopping, be it education, be it entertainment. So why should banking be any different? I'm like, that's the expectation of theirs. So, which was my motivation. So I would say, again, trust your instinct. I just want to add to it because Vishal asked a very interesting question to Ravi about, being from the same industry. And as he rightly pointed out, I have spent a lot of my time in financial services and I chose to be in fintech. My biggest challenge, in fact, I keep repeating to my team, is that we are not here to build a better ICICI. Yeah. That's the biggest thing you can avoid. Just because you know the subject so much. In fact, one of my mentors gave me an analogy. It's like 10th pass kar liya, wapas 8th ke baad wapas 10th karoge to achhe hi marks aayenge na. So you shouldn't try to build the better ICICI just because you know the industry. Because, there is also sometimes you carry the thought process because you've been in that sector. So I would like to overemphasize on this first principle thinking. Even if you are from the industry, try to approach it, because otherwise it won't sustain. You won't enjoy, like that. If you wanted to build this, you probably would have stayed in the bank itself. So, so my journey has been quite experimental. Again, just one thing led to other. I arrived at ICICI. I decided to do MBA because I didn't anticipate how tech would change our life. And then in the bank, I was just part of the flow. It grew. We had troubles. We learned a lot of lessons. Then I could see the tech emerging. I jumped the ship, went to Walnut, which was my first startup, learned some lessons, and then here. So I think it's like, that's just go with the flow. I would just like to add one more point to it. I think we've already spoken, but I think building a good team around you is like super important, especially for the people you would like to work with. Because I am fortunate to work with a lot of my friends in this company. We also happen to have a lot of IIT BHU guys, by the way, in my company. Pune is a smaller city. We usually connect much better than Bangalore or Mumbai or Gurgaon. So ecosystem is much more tightly here. So, but I think just being with good people around you, they respect you, so that, there's a fun of working together, because, we didn't actually put any conditions to what COVID happened. We could not have never anticipated COVID will happen. I've been a banker. My job is to basically anticipate cycles. We all anticipate cycles, but we never could anticipate that something like this will happen. And being a banker 20 years, never seen this, because this was a health crisis. You just couldn't get out. All the previous cycles, how they're different. The good guys continued their life. The only, the bottom lines got affected, but this time everybody got affected. So it was like, for first 4-5 months was like completely blackout. You had no clue what's going to happen. So like, if you have teams around, like, you just support each other and just go through it. वो होता ना कि साथ में चलते रहेंगे, कुछ ना कुछ तो निकलेगा आगे, तो वैसा है. तो I just want to, like, the last message I want to say, that have a little want to work with people you want to work with. अगर साथ में रहेंगे तो कुछ ना कुछ बन ही जाएगा, वैसा है. So my journey was very experimental. I don't know, it's not very insightful. We're just going by whatever came our way. And I think I agree with what Vishal said. In the back end, you would connect the dots. Like, शायद अच्छा ये सब किया तो अभी ये इसका फायदा हो रहा है.
Yeah. I just want to add one thing, Ravi, Teja. Lot of people I met, I do active in angel investment, and there are two types of excitements I've seen in founder. There are one set of people who say that a startup करने के लिए excitement है, and there are the other set of people who are obsessed about a problem statement, hence they want to start a company, right? If you are just excited to start a startup, I think it's a false excitement. Right, just don't do it कि मुझे startup करना है, कुछ तो करेंगे ही, right? Try to find a founder problem fit, right? There are so many such people. Because media is covering so much, funding is happening, and so many, good news here and there, and so many excitement generation masala is happening everywhere, right? Just don't jump on it just because you think that it's glamorous, right? It's not glamorous, right? But it is fulfilling if you connect with the problem statement. I would say that.
Completely. Success in startup is an exception, my friends, right now. It's not a joke. It is an exception. Like we all know, we've seen. I shared myself. We do encounter blackouts. So it is an exception. So if you're not obsessed with the problem, you will lose interest pretty soon.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. This question is particularly very insightful. Trust your instincts and don't get excited for the right reasons. And most importantly, all the successful folks here, unko bulb jala to khood gaye problems pe, like Anurag was saying. So be excited for the right reasons and trust your instincts. All the young folks who are watching this. Moving to the next question. Anurag, you talked about the importance of team, right? It's very important to work with the right people and be excited for the right reasons. So what one important thing you do to ensure that the culture of the company is, I know it's very hard to work with people and create high output teams. What is one thing you constantly do to keep the culture intact?
Yeah. So I think, like it has to, first of all, start really early, on day zero. It's almost day zero. So when three of us started to come together, we wrote some principles. So first of all, alignment is extremely important. So what we do few things differently to make sure that we stick to our culture. For us, this making sure that everybody is excited about the same problem the way we are is very important. In fact, most of the interviews, we speak more than the candidate to make sure that they understand the problem the way we are saying so. Okay, so that's one. Second, again, slightly contra theory. We are a very slow hirers. We believe in reference hiring a lot. Almost first 30, 40 guys, everybody was referenced. Either one of us knew or somebody we know knew. Okay. It is extremely important because I don't think 1 hour of interview can, judge a person. Either way, neither they can judge us. So we would strongly, like many of the, let's say a lot of people believe that in startup you can hire and fire. I don't believe in that. No, I would rather hire slowly, because the cost of mistakes is just too high in the early time, especially to build the culture you want. And sometimes it's good to write this out because it also happens when you have actually no product to chase, when you have no targets to chase. That is when your thinking is quite purist. Even today, we refer to some of the notes we built when we were not even incorporated, or in early days when we had no customers, like 2-3 of us. Some of those notes still come handy. So I think few tricks for us which work well for us. Reference hiring a lot. Make sure that they understand the problem and they are equally excited about it. I'll tell you another trick because I came from corporate life to startup, so I can share one trick. A lot of people say want to shift corporate and want to work in startup, because they could be frustrated or they could be just enamored by the opportunity and all that. So I have a 2-stage framework. First of all, I say, are you frustrated about what you're doing right now? So that is step one. But you need to be equally motivated to solve it. Just being frustrated doesn't help because then you will carry that here. And it's not going to be easy. It is, you have to be equally motivated to solve it. So, we developed some of these tricks early. Try to remain so I also believe I started my startup after working for almost 15-17 years. Now, I do recognize that experience does matter, but I also understand that sometimes, it's super easy to work with your college friends or at college. The simple is because you're temperamentally quite aligned. You are aligned with smartest people around. I think all of us understand we love professors, but we learned a lot from our batchmates or juniors or seniors for that matter. So, in fact, I just met for lunch with one of my junior, 1-year junior from IIT BHU. And I was meeting him after 15 years. He came from Germany to drop somebody and he messaged me and we caught up for lunch. So, I'm just telling you that connection is if you're able to find such people who you connect so we try to, build a college type culture in our company, but of course, more rigorous. I think then the magic happens. So these are few things which we have done, but I would overemphasize on write your terms very early within founders. And when there's nothing to benchmark yourself on, so no targets, no investors, that's when your thinking is quite purist. कि ये बना क्यों रहे हो और क्या बनाना चाहते हो? Rest of the thing will follow from there.
Thank you, Anurag. Vishal, you have built such an organization with multiple folks and multiple skill sets joining. What do you do to ensure the culture is intact on a daily basis?
So, I think, first of all, I agree with, Anurag. I think hiring is one of the most important things a founder does. Series B happened for us in November. Last 3 months, mostly January to March, one of the most important jobs I have done is, hire the next level of team. So I have done maybe, more than 100 interviews in last 3 months. So that is, I think, something it's very important. And how in the culture, so culture is easier said than done. What is culture? So I think certain attributes, I think if the founders or the core team, I think in the hierarchy, people look at the people at the top, how they are conducting themselves. So if in the meetings, the founders or the CEOs, they are talking the truth. See, what is truth, right? See, it does mean that you call a spade, as simple as that, right? sometimes people do shy away from that or put it very diplomatically. And of course, you have to put the truth with kindness. You can't make it abrupt or you can't demean anyone. But if a founder or the CEO is talking the truth in every meeting in a very simple way, the team also learns the same thing, right? If the founder or the CEO, it is about, like if you want a frugal culture, and which most startups should, how you are, conducting yourself or in the meetings, or if you have respect for numbers or logic, right? It permeates down. So is it because a founder or CEO is saying, I like this thing, let's do it? Or the founder or CEO is saying, there's a logic to it, and taking time and effort to explain it to the team. It's all allowing questions to come from the team and answering them in a very honest way, and allowing himself or herself to be convinced if it's any other way. So that culture of honesty, logic, fairness, everyone in the meeting being equal, everyone can share their ideas, or the best logic should prevail. It becomes a part of the system, how, depending on how the core team has conducted themselves from day one, from day zero to every meeting. So I think those things are very, very important, that you can't be seen at any given point to not conduct yourself with truth or fairness or transparency or a mutual respect or certain norms or certain parameters whom you would think organization or your organization should have. So they have to be very important, I think, to be conducted every day in the same level of rigor. Yeah. So
Thanks.
I think, yeah.
Sorry, Vishal.
No, please.
Yeah, thanks, Vishal. So, folks who are watching, what you are doing is who you are for your team. So, take this wonderful advice. Ravi, you want to comment on the same question?
I think it's a very overloaded question. Culture is a very overloaded word, and my take on this is that sometimes in the name of growth, in the name of early traction, you postpone these important things. For a long-term success of the company, you need to define the DNA of the what is the blueprint of your culture, right? And if you do a good job, you will start attracting like-minded folks, right? The way you define your cultural attributes will ultimately help you attract similar kind of people. Otherwise, you will have a very heterogeneous group, and then diversity in a different way is important in a company. But some people, if you have a culture wherein you think as a founder, you say that we are customer obsessed, and you have a set of people who are only revenue obsessed, not customer obsessed, then it's going to conflict, and it will lead to a very, very sort of chaotic situation. In context of BrightChamps, what I can share some of the things. Given that I was Chief Product and Technology Officer at Housing, Makan and Crop Tiger. I had learned why these things are very, very important, and I sort of penned down. Maybe you don't have a very elaborate team helping you on this, but at least the key ingredient you should pen down and pass this on to every individual you are hiring. Like, for example, in our case, it was like we were rejecting any candidate who is not aligning with the attribute of thinking big, right? So thinking big is a very, very important attribute for us. Bias for action is another one, right? Outcome driven rather than output driven is the third one, right? And high degree of ownership is another attribute. And the final one is that, we believe in PPP, which is people, product, and profit in the same order of priority. What I want to convey is that there are some company cultural attributes, and then there are some individual attributes which you want to do the filtration on. Like, for example, I've read somewhere that, and I find it very, very relevant. When we look forward to hire, we look forward to people, individuals who are ethical, smart, and hardworking, right? At least these three attributes should be there, right? And in the order of importance, if you are not ethical and hardworking and smart, we are not going to accept you, right? Sometimes you may do mistake because, the interview process is always not like so elaborate, and, you have only limited time. So you may get, you may have your own fair share of, bad selection, but then at least you will be, if you are clear in thought process, you will have your own, advantage compared to others in terms of attracting or selecting a coherent team, right? So my take is that, define it early, don't delay on it, right? It looks like nice to have an item when you are initially struggling for a PMF and all those things, right? But then it's actually important, right? If you don't do this thing, there are so many plethora of examples in the world wherein they have a skill to some level. Beyond that, they failed because of the cultural misalignment in the company, right? So, yeah.
Thank you, Ravi. Folks, those who are watching this, these are coming from very much hard work and rigor and years of expertise in building companies. It's not at all easy. So thanks for these wonderful insights. On this note, I want to ask one last question to all the panelists over here. There are so many colleges which are consistently creating high quality entrepreneurs, right? And there are colleges, IIT BHU has always created some really good entrepreneurs. What college bodies or students in college should do in order to, consistently get some high quality entrepreneurs built from those institutions? What advice would you give to college in general? This summit is attended by not just IIT BHU students, but many students across the country. So what would you suggest at a college level? Anurag, would you want to answer this question? Oh, so Ravi, please go ahead if you wish to.
Yeah, I have one simple thing here. I think, till the time you have not put your hands down and, you have not gotten your act into the real stuff, you always daydream about things that a startup must be so, so glorious, so wonderful, so royal, and so, comfortable. I think one thing we should definitely do is to give exposure or put these people who are excited about, solving certain problems or excited about the startups, get their hands dirty by joining the industry early on, right? What I mean to say is that, I find a lot of youngsters who are very excited, right? When you talk to them, but then when you work with them, you find that, that excitement is not there, right? And I'm not saying, with a sarcasm. What I'm trying to say is that if you really get your hands dirty, early on, and, there are so many companies, including, let's say, Brightchamps and all the founders available here, will agree that, I myself I'm biased for youth, right? So if there is a young blood which is saying that, I want to try this out, we are ready to give that kind of exposure, right? And we know that, the guy is not coming with experience, but I said that, if you can think properly with first principle, you already have a very unfair advantage with you, right? So what I'm trying to say is that institutes or people who are excited about, such a thing should jump on it early on and taste it, rather than just glorifying in your mind that, it must be like that, it must be like, this, right? A lot of people who join startup from college, they have a heartbreak situation because in my mind, they had imagined something else, right? And then they find that, oh my God, this is completely different. I was reading in media that, there are parties happening all the time. And here, there is sleepless night, right? And so what I'm trying to say is that, hitting the reality, let the tire hit the road, sort of situation should happen early. And after that also, if you are excited, I think, it's a genuine excitement, right? So guys, I'm trying to convey that, whatever field, whichever thing you are excited about, there's so many opportunities out there. Get into it, get your hands dirty and try to connect with yourself, right? Whether you are actually, connecting at a deeper level, or is it like a superficial excitement, right? That, we are open to provide such kind of exposure to anybody, right? And, many other companies will be, right? But that's very important step.
Yeah, thanks, Ravi. Anurag, what's your take on this?
So I think, we talked this discussion in our entrepreneur group also, by the way, that how can we, generate this energy back in our college. I think, these talks is a good starting point, but finally the excitement has to come from within. Okay. A few come, I've seen Bits Pilani doing a great job, creating a massive ecosystem of entrepreneurs supporting other entrepreneurs. We try to do it in a way, whatever we can. We have a group in Pune and we try to meet and, but I would just say that the ecosystem, enterprising guys can figure out solutions. The point is that as long as you are excited about a problem, there are enough ways to figure out the solution. So just stay on that and build damn good network during campus, because that comes super handy. Trust me, hiring the first 10 guys is the most difficult part. If you can hire your friends, that's the best way to do it, because you know the strength and weaknesses. Massively read about it. There is enough material available. Something which I don't like. A lot of founders just have a very, very narrow view of building startup. There's enough material available online to educate yourself how to sharpen your thinking. Because trust me, the biggest investment you are doing is about your time. Okay, everything else is immaterial. Like funding and all of that is secondary. Your time, your opportunity cost is really high. If you're not doing this, you could have done something else, and that's why you got to sharpen this for yourself. That's not for everyone else. Got it? So that would be few set of advice. I think beyond a point, we can all just provide an extra push. The journey has to come from inside. That okay, I want to build this. I'm happy that at least in our group also we see a lot of energy, a lot of entrepreneurs are being developed. But the last thing would be success breeds success. The moment we see I'm like I'll tell you about Pune versus Bangalore debates. Okay, like everybody asks us. In fact, most of the media reports us that a Bangalore-based tech company, and we have to correct them. We're in Pune, and everybody assumes why we are not in Bangalore. And the reason why Bangalore is an ecosystem, because they created success. I'm like the Flipkart got created there, Ola got created there. 10 years back, they were very similar to the way Pune is. It has a similar talent, services talent, large tech companies, large engineering college crowd around it. So it has all the ingredients. It's close to Mumbai. It should be a fintech hub. But we are still figuring out how to be there. And I'm sure we'll get there in the next 4-5 years, because we have generated almost 5 or 6 unicorns in last 1 year. And that is already creating the energy. When we do a meetup, like 100 people will come for a meetup in Pune. But now we already see that, people are coming in hordes. They want to understand how to go about product. So I think, a bit of patience as people start seeing successes, they will anyway get motivated. But I would say, please utilize so much of content is available online. How to write good business plan, how to sharpen things. We spoke about few things. Look at a large problem which you obsess, build a good team around it, and just go on execution. So these are very simple things. I think you will hear from everyone. It's just, you should make sure that you internalize this a lot, because you are investing your time. Everything else is secondary. So like that. So that would be my simple advice. Of course, would love to contribute whatever we can back to IIT BHU community. I'm like, we all started from there. We owe our success to that. I was a very different person when I went there. I was a very different person when I came out. And so it's very close to our heart. So that would be my last message. So build lots of friends. I'm still connected with most of my batchmates because those relationships last long.
Thank you, Anurag. I hope the last few lines all the other panelists would also resonate with. Vishal, would you comment on the same thing? What is your advice to the colleges to build a vibrant startup ecosystem?
I agree with, first of all, Ravi, startup is more practical than theory. So I think no matter what you hear, what you read, just do it. And, even while you are in college, there's so many examples of you can run a very small business or build a software, do things. If you're excited about something, start doing it. Learning is more from doing than anything else, reading or listening or anything else. That's very, very important. Like Anurag said, success breeds success. That's very, very important. So like he took Bangalore versus Pune, but I would say IIT Bombay, Delhi versus IIT BHU. We see so many stories about IIT Bombay, IIT Delhi. So I think that also the ecosystem is very strong. I know so many IIT Bombay, IIT Delhi. So I think once you hear, so I think it's good to have examples, people helping each other. See why so many companies get created in Silicon Valley. There's an ecosystem there, the finances there, there are people working, ideas there. So I think a strong ecosystem helps. So a strong ecosystem of IIT BHU, I think, like we all said, we are greatly indebted to whatever we learned, whatever the memories there, happy to do, whatever we all can. I think, so a great ecosystem of people, maybe talks like this, or maybe once in a year or once or 2 years, people getting together, help even in a physical way, or a strong ecosystem does help. I think it helps. People need resources, people need ideas, people need each other. So, just by talking, being on this panel, I'm a founder, but I'm just more enthused. So just by listening to Ravi and Anurag and Ravi Teja, and good energy creates more good energy. Success begets success. So I think the momentum has to go on. So, and thanks to people, I think people who have organized this summit, I think we have to do more. We have to keep doing more. And of course, doing is more important than anything. And let's create a stronger ecosystem. And I think, I would say just one thing. So Ravi, you should create an entrepreneurship course in BrightChamps also. Sorry, Anurag. Sorry.
Yeah. I just want to add, feel free to ask for help. When I was doing my startup in OneCard, I wanted to do some validation of the thought. There's one company which we all admire in our industry, is a company called Capital One in US. And I found out one of my batchmates was working there. I flew to US, spent 2 days with him in US. And he connected me 2 more folks who happened to be my juniors. One guy was working in Credit Karma, which is like OneScore has a very similar strategy around that. So I found another guy heading risk at Nubank in Brazil. It's a very successful credit card company. So but the only advice I would tell people when they ask me for help, please do your homework before you ask for help. Generally speaking, okay, fine. They write a one para and say, fine. I've thought of a tech idea. Can you please tell me how to fundraise? Guys, this is really 101. None of us would have time, to actually help you in that. If you ask me that, okay, fine, I've done this much work, I'm here, and this is the problem I'm trying to help. Can you help me? It's much easier for us to react to that. But that, please do your homework and then ask for help. And I'm telling you, just go on LinkedIn, keep searching people, and you will find a lot of seniors, juniors around you. I do that all the time, even at that stage. And many times this comes quite handy. So that please remember you should seek help, do your homework, and good cold mails, good cold introductions gets you wonders. But you have to learn to write them well.
Yeah, that's a spot on, Anurag. In fact, some of the folks ask for a 30 minutes quick call without the homework. I'm pretty sure you must be receiving so many LinkedIn messages for all of it. Right. So everyone, all the panelists said, success breeds success. We were hearing about the unicorn machine, IIT Delhi, so many unicorns have been created. And we should be very proud that IIT BHU is breeding many unicorns and going to breed more in the future as well. So I really thank the pioneers in this journey, Ravi Bhushan, Anurag Sinha, and Vishal Jindal, for creating such really good companies which we can take pride of as an alumni, and definitely putting the 90 minutes of time. You can imagine how valuable it is to share such valuable learnings over here today. So thank you so much all the panelists for being here and sharing your valuable insights to all the folks. We covered so many things: 0 to 1 journey, go to market strategies, culture, all the advices for young folks, content. So, one thing I'm leaving with Anurag's question, Anurag's thought, जब बल्ब जल गया तो आपको कूद जाना चाहिए. So I wish all the best to the young folks. It's been an amazing panel discussion. And once again, thank you so much for taking your valuable time, all the panelists.
Thank you, Ravi.
Thank you.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and keep in touch, Ravi and Rag. I'll ping you